Time to do the job. Time to do the job! Behold the jobber of jobbers. Daniel Jobber.
What's up, everybody? This is the Emden Area's own D-Job, Daniel Jobber, and I want to welcome you to another Jobbing Out with Daniel Jobber social commentary. Today, I'm going to take it to a new level. I'm going to address a topic that's dirty, ugly, controversial, maybe even taboo, and that is the topic of rape, allegations of rape, accusations of rape. Basically, the aspects surrounding a very horrible and ugly topic in our society that is unfortunately a reality. And for those that are not keeping up with the media in the last couple of days, the reason this has been brought to main light was because a wrestler, Enzo Amore, was recently, in the last few months, had an accuser accusing him of committing rape. And just recently, the WWE, on the day of the 25th anniversary, or at least right close to that date, of Raw, received info through the grapevine, I guess, or through social media, the social media comment, that this had happened, and suspended him from action, and then a day later, released him, fired him, basically, from their roster, from their company. Something like this hasn't happened in my recent memory, at least not with WWE, where a person was accused and released so suddenly on such a serious allegation. And certainly there's no proven allegations yet. There hasn't been any investigation, court case, conviction, or anything like that. So it's still open, innocent until proven guilty kind of situation. And just for those of you who aren't familiar with Enzo Amore, permit me to just do a quick little impression of of his shtick that maybe will help you. Those of you who aren't familiar with him maybe recognize who we're talking about here. His shtick was, "My name is Enzo Amore, and I'm a certified G and a bona fide stud, and you can't teach that. And this right here is Big Cass, and he's 7 foot tall, and you can't teach that. Bada boom, realest guy in the room, how you doing?" And if, of course, you weren't familiar with Enzo Amore as a WWE superstar, then there's only one word to describe you as a WWE fan, and I'm gonna spell it out for you. S-A-W-F-T, soft. So anyways, that was Enzo Amore and Big Cass. He's still with the company. He's on injury leave right now. That was their shtick that they would do every single time they were on stage. So anyways, that's Enzo Amore. Permit my the impression in me, wrestling impressionist in me coming out. If it was a bad impression, well, I apologize. But anyways, that's Enzo Amore. He is no longer with the WWE. He has been fired and released because of the allegations of rape. And it's believed, and well, actually fairly well reported, that it wasn't just because they believe he's raped somebody that he was fired. One, he was a bit of a troublemaker, had some issues in the locker room in the past, and he was kind of on thin ice as it was. And then, of course, he knew about this investigation, allegations for several months. It happened back in October, and he had not notified them about it. And they just found out through social media just a couple of days ago, around the day of the 25th anniversary of Raw. And so, finding out about it that way, they decided they just didn't want to have any more to do with this potentially volatile, dangerous person on their roster, and they decided to part ways with him. And I guess you can't really blame him. I'm going to, of course, talk more about the issue of obligations or whether you should consider telling your employee if somebody ever does attempt to accuse you of something of that magnitude, whether there's any validity to them, or whether there's any truth to them or not, whether you should consider, communicating with your employer about these kind of things. But like I said, we'll address that near the end. It's a minor part of this topic. There's some more to the story with Enzo Amore. First off, the accuser had actually been invited on, I think it was on TMZ, or they were invited to actually talk about her experiences. And there's a video released in social media. If you haven't seen it, you can certainly check it out. She describes the situation, and her description of it is definitely rape. Him forcing himself on her, her being unconscious through part of it, waking up in the act of sex, just the unwelcomeness of it all. It's definitely, the way she describes it is definitely rape. Although, as some pointed out, her demeanor of describing it didn't seem to paint the picture of somebody who was damaged. Although, of course, it's been months, and not everybody reacts the same way in social media, so it's not fair to judge a person. But there is some question around the way she presented it, be it what it was, or at least people were questioning it, have been questioning it. And then after that, a friend of hers on social media, or I guess real life, it's hard to tell. The description between their relationship was kind of vague. They were just friends. They're not the fellow that we're talking about here is gay. He's not someone who would date her, that sort of thing. So there's no any kind of romantic connections, just a friendship. Apparently he was a person that supported her through tough times, and I guess vice versa, from according to her. But anyways, he comes on and he does a video saying, that what she's saying about Enzo Amore is false, and he shows receipts about from on social media, like tweets basically, or Facebook posts, that sort of thing, showing her comments to him regarding the incident. And some of the comments were I'm waking up next to a professional wrestler and all that kind of stuff, sounding like the experience was something that she was proud of, or although she later on claims that they're out of context. I'll get to that in a second. But anyways, basically creating the indication that that maybe she welcomed the experience, or at least enjoyed the experience, and it was not something that was traumatic as she described it, certainly with the allegations of what would be considered rape. So anyways, he posts this and says his reasoning is to make sure that she gets the help she needs, doesn't get away with false accusations. She comes back, I guess just recently, saying that he's an unstable person, that the tweets are taken out of context. She was still under the influence of drugs when she made these, and vaguely remembers them but doesn't really remember them. And that hours later she was on the phone with someone bawling her eyes out, that kind of thing. It's a back and forth thing. There's no, this shouldn't be happening on social media, in my opinion. Really, it should be left to the courts. This should be something that's happening in a legal situation, not in a public forum like social media. But it is what it is, and there's no way we can judge or answer or know for sure what the situation is, who's guilt, whether there's guilt or no guilt, whether she enjoyed it or was traumatically damaged by it. There's really no way to know, and we can't really judge. It is what it is. Now, if I had to define legal sex, I would define it as when two or more legally able and willing parties all engage, or choose to engage, and do engage in a sexual act together. And, of course, willing means that none of the parties can be coerced. That would obviously cross the line into an illegal sexual activity, coerced or against their will, compelled into this act. And, of course, by legal, there could be anything from age issues to relationship issues, whether that is blood relations or things like authority or responsibility or that sort of thing. There's many places I'm sure you could find out if you have a question whether a sexual act that you are considering engaging in is legal or otherwise. Now, sex, whether legal or otherwise, becomes rape is when one of those parties or more actively withdraws consent in any way, shape, or form, and that can be, like I said, any way, shape, or form. They could actively say, "Look, no more. I'm done. Don't continue this. This is not something I'm comfortable with," etc. Or, of course, becomes unable to actively choose to continue or withdraw consent within all obvious reason, and that can be if a person apparently or quite obviously becomes unable to control their actions. And of course, it's a judgment call, but it's a dangerous one to not err on the side of caution. Or, of course, if one of the parties becomes unconscious, at that point, continuing a sexual act with that person is definitely rape. I should also clarify that in many laws, illegal sex is also rape if one of the parties is considered legally too young to be allowed to give consent, in which case it's considered statutory rape, which is also a type of rape. Now, are there considered cases where illegal sex or rape are not dealt with or reported? Yeah, probably many. And of course, everyone has a choice to either report or not report a crime that's happened to them. But of course, the moral obligations or ramifications of doing so or not doing so are there either way, and I will discuss more of those later on. And for the purpose of this video, of course, I'm going to be dealing with sexual acts between two people, just for simplicity, because the act that inspired this video is a case of, from what I can tell, with just two parties. And so from now on, I'll be treating this issue as if it is only between two people, but obviously it can be a number of people, and any one of those parties becoming unwilling in any way, shape, or form, or unable to withdraw or continue consent, that would then constitute rape. And of course, when I talk about rape, I'm also kind of lumping in a little bit with what's sexual assault, because really sexual assault is any kind of unwelcome physical forcing of oneself onto another person where at any point it was against their will or unwelcome or undesired. And then, of course, if that leads into acts that are truly considered sexual acts, I guess that's where it crosses the line into rape. But it's not a pretty topic. It's ugly. But what is it? It doesn't take much for the line to cross between a consenting sexual or casual sexual encounter to rape. Really, all it takes is at any point in the situation the other person to say, look, we're done, it's enough, I don't want any more, I don't welcome this, I'm not enjoying this, I'm done with this. Person to go to a point where they can't make a proper judgment or a proper choice of whether to engage in this encounter or not, or to go completely unconscious. Any of those things can lead a sexual encounter from casual consenting sex into rape. And of course, and we're not talking about the ugly, obviously there's the ugly side of rape where a person seeks somebody out, forces themselves on them, has sex with them against their will, completely against their will, often physically abuses, that's obvious rape, that's ugly, that's horrible, it's one of the most heinous crimes a person can do to another human being. That's obvious rape, and I don't want to deal with that side of it, because that's predatorial stuff, that's just monsters that do that kind of stuff, you'd hope, or at least people that have the side of a monster inside of them, which is really scary side of society. So I don't want to deal with that. I want to deal with the side of rape that's the fine line between we're having a good time together and now it's rape now, or it's an unwelcome situation. And it doesn't take much, like I said, at any point if one of the two parties, no matter how close they are, how much they've been doing it, how long they're doing it, how far they're along, how many times in a row, or whatever you want to, at some point one of the parties says, we're done, it's enough, I don't want any more, no, stop, no more, I'm not enjoying this, or loses the ability to make a proper decision to continue or not continue, or goes unconscious, that's the time to stop. That is the point where any continuing act at that point could and really would constitute rape. There's times in the past when I thought that seemed a little unfair, but the reality is, in the world we live in, people have a right to their bodies. Your body is your own. If at any point you can't make a proper decision regarding the use of your body, or you no matter how far the situation is or what it is, if you say this is not welcome use of my body, you have a right to say that's it, no more, we're done, or at least to be respected to the point where they know you can't make a proper decision. That's the point when it goes from either the sex stops or it becomes rape. And that's the reality. It's fair. It's people's right to their body. Right? And there's dangers of addressing this topic in a objective, calm manner, I guess, in a sense. There's a lot of people out there that don't want to hear about this topic. They think it's taboo. It shouldn't be talked about. We should just shove it under the rug. Or does that make it? Of course, that doesn't make it go away. It doesn't change the fact that rape is a reality. So it is what it is. And my choice to address it is my choice. I guess at this point, I should say that I'm going to continue to talk about the topic. If you're a person who is squeamish about the topic, doesn't want to hear about the topic, doesn't think it should be talked about in social media, or, of course, the other danger is people who hear people talking objectively about rape. Some people automatically get defensive and say, if you're not totally on the side of the victim, or people who claim they're victims, you're victim shaming, you're blaming the victim, you're protecting the guilty parties, and that sort of thing. And of course, I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to look objectively into situations which can take many shapes and forms. And so, once again, if you're a person who automatically is defensive about the topic, and if you're a person who is there to protect victims of rape, and hearing any other sides of it is not in your taste, I warn you right now, this is probably not the video for you. You should probably discontinue watching or listening if you're listening on the podcast form, because I'm going to address it more objectively and openly. And one, as I said, reality, not talking about it doesn't make it go away, doesn't change the fact that it's reality. And two, just because many situations of rape are horrible and true, and the victims, it's scary and difficult for victims to come forward, and when they come forward, sometimes they face the harsh reality that there's risks that they might be not believed, called a liar, questioned, that people might side with the person who is the person they're accusing because maybe they're famous or rich or powerful, or and of course, obviously, there's some people who have biases in this topic, whether towards either male or a female, that sort of thing. All these make it very risky and difficult for a person to come forward when they've had these kind of situations, and I'm not trying to belittle that side of it, but there are realities, situations of where there's many different types of people out there. Some are honest and integral and come forward as true victims, and then there's other people who might be devious or look for ways to scam or scandalize their way into popularity or riches, that sort of thing. The reality is there are cases where rape didn't happen. And the allegations are made in attempt to gain something from the situation from the other person that they're accusing. I'm not trying to say, whether it's the norm or how common it is, or how many issues are real rape and how many are not. But the reality is there are some cases that are one way and some cases that are the other. And if you're a person who doesn't want to look at the objective side of this, then this is not the video or podcast for you. I'm going to give you that warning now, that this is probably a good time to slip out and move on. But anyways, I'm going to address the topic. And certainly it doesn't make it go, not addressing it doesn't make it go away, not talking about it doesn't make it go away. And there are situations where it's not real, where it's actually a person's attempt to use a situation that is socially taboo to gain something or from another person or from a situation. So anyways, that is what the topic of this is. And that leads me into the first thing I want to address, which is the dangers of casual sex in today's society. If you engage in casual sex, there are dangers. I mean, of course, obviously the main, or the first one is the physical dangers of it. The fact that, that's how sicknesses are translated. That's how, pregnancy unplanned pregnancy can occur. All these issues that are physical. I don't want to address that. That's a topic for another video. I want to address the dangers, and I'm not going to address the psychological dangers of what impact on psyche, the choice to have sex or not have sex with people casually is either. I want to address the issues of risks of the situation turning into from a enjoyable, fun experience into something that could be potentially damaging to lives and futures. And of course, that's where it leads into rape. Anytime you engage in a sexual encounter, there is a danger that at some point in that sexual encounter, one of the parties could become unable to continue to give consent or make the proper decision regarding their body. There's a danger they could at a point where you didn't expect it, say, look, I'm done, I don't want any more, I don't welcome this anymore. And no matter how much you say, I was caught up in the heat of the moment, it doesn't change the fact that at that point you have to accept and respect the other person's wishes. Or the person could totally go unconscious. In cases where alcohol is involved, sometimes people get to the point where they can't make a decision about their body, or they totally go unconscious. And if they do, the dangers of continuing are, they're not even dangers. If you continue, you are basically, in one way, shape, or form, if the other person chooses to state it or act on it or publicly let it be known, you are committing rape if you continue to engage in sexual acts when the other person is unconscious or unable to tell you, no, I don't welcome this, or even yes. If they're not able to say yes or no in any way, shape, or form, or you have reason to believe they're unable to say yes or no, you are pretty much legally obligated and morally obligated to stop and wait for another point when this person is able to make those proper decisions to continue with sex, because it is crossing that line from fun, casual sex into rape. If you choose to engage in an alcoholic endeavor that could potentially lead to sex and does lead to sex, you have to be sure the other person is able to make proper decisions regarding their own body, because if they in any way, shape, or form later on feel that you've used the situation or used the alcohol to get them into a situation that you know or have reason to know they would not have allowed had they not been engaging in alcohol, you are crossing the line into rape. And that is dangerous, because not only is it immorally wrong in any way, shape, or form, but there's also a chance the other person could basically come forward and say, you had no right to do this to me, and at that point you are jeopardizing your future, your freedom, your basically the law-abiding citizen in you is at that point compromised. It's dangerous. It's a very risky situation to be in. So if you choose to engage in alcoholic endeavors that could lead to sex, you have to be very carefully on guard to make sure that you know, you have to ask yourself, would this person welcome and allow this to happen if they were totally sober or weren't under the influence of alcohol? Because if it is due to the alcohol that they allow this to happen, there is a chance that they could come back and say, I did not welcome this, you took advantage of the situation, took advantage of me, and at that point it is a rape incident. And like it or not, that's the reality of it. That is the legal grounds where you're crossing into the from casual fun sex into rape. And if the other person chooses to act against you on that regard, you are unfortunately in a situation where you don't got a lot of protection. You are in a situation where you have basically crossed the lines into rape and have your future and legal future on the line. So keep that in mind. That is what we're casual sex and fun leads into rape. Now, if you are a person who's had this happen to you, have you been raped? That is the question you have to ask yourself. One is, it's not uncommon for a person to have mixed feelings or regrets or feelings of embarrassment that maybe they crossed lines into an area they wished or even partially wished they hadn't. And at that point, you have to ask yourself, I don't know, it's a kind of a complicated situation at that point. Did I bring this on myself, I guess? Because there are some cases where there are people out there that drink a lot and do things that are stupid, and that later on they know are stupid, but when at the time they did it, they realized they were making a conscious choice, albeit under the influence of these influencers like alcohol and drugs, to that these influencers maybe cause them to act in ways they wish they hadn't. And people make mistakes. People do the walk of shame. They have to live with consequences and decisions they've made when they're under the influence of drugs and alcohol. As a responsible adult, you have a responsibility to your own actions when you engage in alcohol and drugs. You have to ask yourself, did I bring this on myself, I guess? And if you did, you have to really ask yourself, was I really raped, or was I a willing participant albeit under the influence of drugs that caused me to be a willing, or that helped me to be more comfortable in situations I shouldn't have been comfortable with, that led to this. And if it is, you have to take some blame on yourself. You have to accept the fact that we don't always do things we're proud of when we're under alcohol and drugs. And so you have to be open to the possibility that maybe you just did something you shouldn't have done. You wish you hadn't done. We all do it. We've all done things we're not proud of when we're on the influence of alcohol and drugs. And we have to own up to it. We're adults. We have to accept our responsibilities of our actions. Now, if at some point you got to the point where you could not have any way of knowing or controlling what you did, you should have a right to trust that other people around you have respect and legal responsibility and moral responsibility to some extent, to your safety and the rights to your body. If a person doesn't respect that and uses that situation where you've lost control of yourself and mind and body and uses that to their own sexual advantage, there's probably rape there. You probably have, in some way, shape, or form, been raped. And that's a horrible thing to happen, to wake up and realize, what just happened to me? I have no idea what just happened, but I know my body's been compromised by this person, or hopefully the person that did it, or the person is present or around to know that this happened. That certainly would be worse to wake up and not knowing who or why or how this happened to you, from whom. But either way, at that point, it's quite likely rape has happened. And it's ugly and horrible, and you have a right to feel violated and to take action against any person who took advantage of you and didn't respect your body in your moment of inability to control yourself. And whether the other person liked it or not, at that point, they've crossed the line into rape, and you have a right to feel violated and to act on that feelings of violation, and maybe even, to some extent, a moral obligation to do so. Because, what are the dangers of not reporting sex? Or not reporting rape. The danger is the other person gets away with it, and maybe, there's the old psychological thing that a person who gets away with committing crimes, breaking law, doing things that are immoral, continuously gets easier and easier in the future. And there's risks that, they may do it again. They may violate people that are far more vulnerable to damage even than you. They may seriously ruin somebody's life by their continued actions. And it can get worse. I mean, they might become more and more immoral with their acts if you don't step forward and call it out and challenge them on what they've done, or even legally, press charges or report what has happened. You do have a legal obligation to protect, a moral obligation to protect other people in our society from the same thing happening to them that's happened to you. So, it's natural to be ashamed and I can't believe I let this happen to me. I can't believe this happened to me. Is it because I drink alcohol? Did I welcome this on myself by losing consciousness or losing control of my body? Don't be ashamed. Don't let shame prevent you from doing the right thing. And certainly not for yourself and for other people. You got to come forth and at least deal with the situation that's happened, or there's risks of worse things happening in the future. So the dangers of not reporting rape is manyfold, because of the fact that what can happen afterwards if it isn't reported and dealt with. And obviously, if you've been raped and you're hurting over it, don't just take action, but please reach out, get help, and don't suffer alone, because that's the worst thing you can do for yourself. And in the same way now, if you know that you had a willing role in this situation that happened, albeit whether, you are 100% feeling wonderful about it afterwards or not, but if you know you had a conscious, willing choice in this matter, at the same time going forth and telling and calling out the person for committing rape, or if you premeditated to have this other person damaged by your actions, or to use it against them, or just plain let your own personal shame and feelings of the mistakes you made make you want to lash out at another person. That's goes into the line of crying wolf, and that's also very dangerous, because in a world where we're trying to convince people that if you're raped or violated, you need to come forth, you need to stand up for yourself, you need to be honest and clear and not let shame keep you from doing the right thing, you're basically setting that goal back years by daring to say something happened that you know in your own heart was not what you're saying it was. So the danger of crying wolf is also bad. If you know deep down you weren't really raped or violated, the danger of coming forth and saying that this person did this to you is also very bad. So you have to really know, or ask yourself and be honest with yourself, is this something I consciously, albeit on the influence of minor influence of drugs and alcohol or whatever, in the heat of fun, brought on myself? Or is this something where a person disrespected your right to your body in a situation where you were unable to make a conscious, proper decision and took advantage of you? You have to make that decision of whether you were raped or whether you made a mistake. And if you made a mistake, own up to your mistakes. And if you were raped, you got to come forward and be clear, or else you're bringing the possibility of that happening again to somebody else on them, and they might not be as strong or lucky as you are, even if it didn't damage you to the level where you person could be damaged by these kind of situations. So yeah, the decision to come forward or to accept your mistakes is a very important decision you have to make at that point. So anyways, that's the dangers of casual sex, the dangers of crying wolf, or the dangers of not reporting something that actually did happen if you were violated. Now, so basically all I can say is, if you've been raped, what should you do? Well, one, of course, don't let shame keep you from acting. You've been violated, you had a right to your body, that right to your body was disrespected. Don't keep quiet about it. Don't let it go as something, well, it is what it is. If it's something that you feel you have the strength to resolve, as dangerous as that can be, at least confront the person and say, look, what you did was wrong. Let them know that this is not acceptable, that this is not something that they can get away with. Let them know that you don't intend to allow them to behave this way and get away with it. But of course that's dangerous, because at that point they could lash out in return, or who knows what could happen. It could turn into a battle that you didn't intend. So at the very least, if you're going to do it, make sure you have backup and people that you can watch your back to make sure nothing bad escalates from that. But if it's a situation where you know this other person could be a danger, then treat it as illegal. Treat it as a crime. Treat it as any other person who broke the law and violated you. Go forward, report it to the police, and gather evidence. Build your case. Don't let shame keep you from acting. Go to the doctor and get evidence that this person violated you. Go to the police, report it. Make sure there's a case created and that the investigation begins. Don't allow the situation to delay. Don't delay for days on end and allow the situation to cool off, because the best time to report a crime is right away. You get the investigation right away, where the evidence is fresh and is clear. And it's much easier to have an investigation be successful that way and to get to the bottom of the matter. Don't let shyness or shame or feelings of guilt prevent you from doing the right thing. Act right away. Anyways, so that's the advice I have. You have a right to your body. You have a right to be respected, to have your body respected as your own, and no one has a right to use your body in any way that you don't and aren't able to fully consent and agree to. And if someone uses your body in a way that you didn't consent or agree to, or weren't able to give permission or not permission to do so, you've been violated, you've been raped, and you should come forward right away and make sure that situation is dealt with. It doesn't happen to anybody else. Now, of course, the danger of the other side. What if you are a financially well-off, successful, rich person who happens to want to engage in casual sex. I mean, the danger of casual sex is plenty good. The best thing you can do for yourself right off the bat is not engage in casual sex. Build relationships, build connections with women, I'm speaking from a man, with people of the sex that you wish to engage with, or the gender of the sex you wish to engage with. Build those relationships. Make sure you have a solid, trusting connection with that person so that there is no doubt that if you engage in sexual activities, it is fully consensual. The best kind of sex to have is in a committed, trusting relationship where both parties are quite clearly known by everybody around that this is a welcome, consenting situation. That's the safest way to have sex. It doesn't mean that at some point the other person could say, look, I don't welcome this at this point or this situation. I don't want this to continue, and that you still don't have a right to or have an obligation to respect their bodies. But it just means that you have a little bit of protection, that people know that you are willing partners in this relationship. That gives you that protection. Now, barring that, if you're a person who likes to have encounters that end in sex, just be warned. You got to be on guard. You have to make sure that both you and the other party are clear and coherent and are able to make proper decisions regarding their body, and that you listen and are attentive to the other person for signs the other person is no longer welcoming this activity. Because if you cross the line beyond any of those areas, you are risking that other person accusing you of rape. I mean, or you're risking committing rape or having committed rape. And of course, now as a better, well-off, or famous, or whatever person, you got to realize that there are people out there that aren't honest, innocent people that might attempt to take advantage of your situation to improve their own situation. And you got to make sure that you really are beyond reproach and cover all your bases. And I don't even know all the answers. That's a question I'm going to raise at the end, is what can a person who is in a situation of vulnerability, that they could be targeted for any kind of activity that would attempt to benefit the other person by accusing you of something that didn't happen. How do you prevent yourself from being a target? But anyways, I'm going to go into that in a minute. First off, just take precaution. If you're a person who has something to lose, make sure you take all those precautions. Like I said, the best thing you can do is make sure you have solid relationships, whether they're monogamous or whatever they are, make sure that between you and the other person there is a relationship of trust and confidence, that you know each other, and that there is no doubt this other person is at least a willing participant in any encounters that you might have. Anyways, I wanted to address one more issue before I raise some questions regarding the topic. First off, what should you do if a person accuses you in any way, shape, or form, or presses charges or raises an investigation regarding you and accusations of sexual assault or rape? Are you obligated, or should you feel the need to report this to your employer? As in the case of Enzo Amore, who was fired at the fact that he didn't. It's a very thin line. On one aspect, your employer should not have direct business into your private life, and they certainly could pass judgment on you based upon the decisions you make regarding your private life, and in some cases this could be damaging. But the thin ice is double-edged, because if the situation comes out publicly and your employer hears it through other means than you that these situations are happening, or that situation is in place, they could be surprised or embarrassed by it to the point where they decide that it is a danger to them to continue a relationship with you on a professional level, and you could put your job in jeopardy, either way. And so it's a tough decision whether to bring it forth. If there is a chance this could come out one way or another, you're probably better off just to own up to your actions and the situation to your employer, let them know what's happening. In the case of Enzo Amore with the WWE, had he let them know that this was happening, they had an investment in him that they stood to lose from his accusations. Maybe, and they have a strong legal team to protect them from these kind of situations, maybe they could have helped them. Maybe they could have had one of their legal representatives contact the person who's accusing them, especially once more evidence came out that this person may not have been 100% up and up on the situation, and maybe attempted to let them know that if the situation is not what they claim it is, that the other person, they stand to face risk regarding reciprocation regarding these accusations. And that's, of course, I actually want to address that topic too, about the risk of accusing somebody falsely is defamation suits, which is another risk of a person who does choose to cry wolf. They could have let them know the dangers of making false allegations against somebody that made people stand to lose a lot of money from the accusations. Maybe they could have helped him, but he'll never know because he didn't bring it to their attention, and they found out in a way that was surprising and embarrassing, and they decided they didn't want to deal with it anymore, and they decided to part ways with him. So, unfortunately, it's a mistake he made. You'll have to live with. If he's cleared of the charges, it's still unlikely the WWE would rehire him, because of the fact that at that point they're risking their own integrity on. He could say, well, the time when I wasn't hired by you, I lost a lot of money. I think I deserve some of that money back, because obviously you're feeling that you made the wrong decision. I'm not saying this, describing it in so many words, but that's something that a person could allege in these situations. So WWE would have a lot to lose in terms of bringing him back very soon after he was cleared. Now, years down the road, once the situation is blown over quite a bit, they could always rehire him and say, you know what, we feel you've moved on, learned your lesson, you're a better person, and we choose to do business with you again. But to do it, it's unlikely they will do anything in the next year or few, regardless of whether he's cleared of these charges or not, because of the dangers of what people might say, or what he might say regarding the lost revenues of not being with them for that time. So anyways, yeah, he's put himself in a situation where he's lost a lot of revenues, and that's the risk of not telling your employer that these situations are happening. And that Greg said, just as much as the danger of telling your employer is that they might judge you or hold it against you that you engage in these situations, in your private life. They might judge you as the type of character you are, and they could choose to not do business with you on those grounds too. So it's thin ice. You got to make the best decision. But if it's a situation that could come out one way or another, you're probably better off just to own up to your mistakes and your situation you put yourself in, and hope for the best, because that's really the best situation you had. And in Enzo's case, that might have been the best thing he could have done. He might maybe still have a job today, and maybe even have a chance of moving on from these allegations and maybe learn from the experience. But now he's going to have to learn from it in a more negative way. He'll have to seek other sources of revenue. Maybe other wrestling organizations will choose to do business with him on grounds that these allegations were false. Who knows? Hopefully we wish the best for Enzo Amore if he is innocent. And if he's guilty, well, can't blame me for wishing the worst on him, because committing rape is one of the worst things you can possibly do to another human being. But anyways, should you report to your employer? It's still nice. It's a judgment call. Do it if you feel it's going to come out, because it's not worth letting your employer be surprised and embarrassed by a situation that you could have at least given the heads up ahead of time. And in some cases, maybe they can even help you. Anyways, I did also want to touch on the aspect of the danger of crying wolf, the risk of defamation of character, because to claim a person who is in a certain status where they have a lot to lose financially or publicly on the fame side of things, basically all resulting in loss of revenue, income, potential to make a lot of money, you are risking a danger of defamation of character lawsuits. And that's nothing to shrug off. I mean, you as a person who's taking a risk of accusing a person who may be you might stand to gain from the situation and have very little to lose, because maybe you don't have a lot to give the person if they do choose to take legal action. At the same time, though, a lot of legal action doesn't just go away just because you're broke the day it happens at you. A lot of legal action hangs around and limits your ability to become financially better off in the future. It's not something to take lightly. If you think you can gain financially from hurting another human being, you got to realize the risk of damaging yourself if you can't prove these situations, or if they go against you, are far more dangerous. It's not worth the risk to attempt to gain financially by presenting false allegations against somebody just because you might gain from it. You might gain in fame, you might gain in money, or you could stand to lose your entire future over it. Don't take the risk. If you haven't had something bad happen to you, don't go forward and try to make it sound like something bad happened to you for personal gain. It's wrong, it's horrible, and you face serious risks in the process. So anyways, to close the video, I just wanted to raise the question of what can a rich, successful person do if they want to engage in casual sex to protect themselves? Because I don't have all the answers. I don't know what a person would do. For me, it's not a risk. I'm not a person who's well off to begin with. I don't have a lot for a person to target me for any kind of legal action. At the same time, I'm also a happily married person in a good relationship. Certainly casual sex is the furthest thing from my mind on a personal level. So I'm not at risk. I haven't had to think about these things. What can a person do who has a lot to lose if they choose to engage in casual sex to protect themselves? If you have thoughts, ideas, I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear from you regarding this, because it's a puzzle in my mind what a person, say like Enzo Amore, could do in a situation where he took a risk, how he could have protected himself better before he engaged in that risk. Or any person who's in a situation where they have lots to lose from being targeted to protect themselves from the danger of casual sex. So yeah, I welcome your feedback on that, or any topic regarding what I've said today. I do these things to hopefully raise questions, to get your mind thinking, to open minds on these kind of topics, and I certainly welcome and want your comments, your feedback, what your thoughts are on the topic. And there's many ways to give me feedback. You can obviously comment on the video or the podcast, whatever you're listening on. There's always comments available for these kind of things. You can tweet me on Twitter. I'm at Daniel Jobber, capital D, capital J. Heck, you can comment on any of my posts on Instagram if you want. Daniel Jobber, Daniel Jobber, all lowercase letters. You can email me, danimeldaniel.jobber@gmail.com. I have a website, danimeldaniel.jobber.ca, and on that I have a discuss, where you can actually sign up, and you can actually give feedback to people who run websites that have Discuss as their means of feedback. You can actually leave comments anywhere you want, pretty much, where they have a Discuss link available or box available. You can leave all kinds of comments and feedback there. And so I hope you'll check out my website, danimeldaniel.jobber.ca, if you want to know more about me. I have lots of different types of content I put on that. Primarily, I like to talk about professional wrestling, and that's where this topic of rape is inspired in me, because of the fact that it's Enzo Amore who's a professional wrestler. But yeah, I welcome your comments, feedback. Communicate with me. I definitely want to hear what you have to say about it. So anyways, I'm going to wrap up the topic today. Forgive me for addressing a very difficult and ugly, taboo, if you will, topic on social media, but it's something I'm passionate about, and I feel, I had a voice, and I wanted to discuss the matter, I guess, and my thoughts on it, and raise some questions regarding, what a person can do, say in a situation like Enzo Amore, to protect themselves, because it's the reality any rich, famous person does take, is they're at risk of being targeted in the same way that if they behave in a horrible manner, they're at risk of losing their entire future and their career and destroying their life over mistakes they make. And just like anybody else, just because you're rich and famous doesn't mean that you're not a criminal, a monster, or potentially a rapist or whatever. You have to behave in a legal, civilized, proper manner, whether you're rich and famous or whether you're Joe Blow on the street. You feel the same legal and moral obligations in our society to behave. So, yeah, it's a topic that is reality in our world and in our lives, and maybe all too often. And like I said, I'm not attempting to judge whether 90% is real, 10% is fake, or whatever. But the reality is there are many situations that are true, allegations of rape that actually did happen, and a person is damaged, and punishment should occur. But there are always going to be situations where people use that topic or that possibility to their own advantage to damage other people for personal gain. There are always going to be people like that will do anything to make a buck, to become rich and famous. And we have to accept that both are in our society, and you can't make a hard and fast rule to blame every person who's accused of rape as if they're guilty without risking innocent people being damaged. And at the same time, you can't say we have to be always open to the fact that that people could be lying or making up allegations for personal gain without risking that people who actually were damaged or who committed these crimes are going to get away with it. You have to be open-minded and objective and analyze every situation individually and try to get to the bottom of the situation, and hopefully that's done in the court of law where it belongs, not in the realm of social media like it's happening with Enzo Amore, because this isn't Jerry Springer. This is real life. This situation that are legal should not be public forums. Court should not be a big public he said, she said battle of social media and comments, and like I said, it's not a Jerry Springer show. This is real life. So hopefully this matter goes to court where it belongs and stays in court and doesn't become some crazy social media legal or non-legal babble among people who it's really none of their business. So anyways, it is what it is. This is the D-Job, Daniel Jobber, Edmonton area zone. Proud to be, a voice, I guess. And I hope you'll follow me, as I said, on Twitter at Daniel Jobber, capital D, capital J. Hope you'll follow me on Instagram, Daniel Jobber, all lowercase letters. Hopefully you will go to my website, danimeldanieljobber.ca, check it out, leave comments. If you want to support me, of course, just tell people about me, tell people that I'm looking to expand my horizons, to do more things publicly. Heck, I dream of doing commercials, doing a character on a television show, whatever. I dream of being being an actor or a public figure, and things I want to do with my life. So just tell people about me, let people know that I exist and that you found me intriguing. Of course, I also sell merchandise like this Pride and Joy, my hoodie here with my Jobber Champion logo on it. You can see these on my website under merchandise, the merchandise tab at the top of the screen. You can buy hoodies, there's t-shirts, there's baby onesies, sizes and styles for women and children, you name it. All with my Pride and Joy, my Jobber Champion logo on it, and I think it's kind of snazzy myself, and always love wearing my my hoodie. They're not expensive. They're brought to you courtesy of whatamaneuver.net. Although all the comments in this video are my own, they're my expressed personal opinions and feelings on the matter. I am proudly affiliated with with Backbreaker Media, Mike the Ref's Pride and Joy, and his media channel presenting all sorts of wrestling and wrestling related matters. Of course, on that is I hope you'll check out Backbreaker Media. I'll give a little bit of information on how to be affiliated, or how to get information, or to watch or become a subscriber of Backbreaker Media. But there's things like Mike the Ref's Blown Call and Quick Calls. There's Sounds of Struggle podcast with Chris Parrish, Maniac, and sometimes Sean Martins. And of course, he also covers CWC wrestling on his channel as well. And he does wrestling broadcasts from all over the place in North America now that some you can enjoy for free, some you need to subscribe to. So give him a look-see, and I hope you'll subscribe and enjoy great wrestling content that we have available to us in Alberta through social media and through the Edmonton area. So here, just a little bit of information on Mike the Ref and Backbreaker Media. Of course, that Backbreaker Media branding is where you will find this. On Twitter, it's under Backbreaker Medi, capital B on back, and then Medi has a capital M, but otherwise it's all lowercase, Backbreaker Medi. And of course, you can also follow Mike the Ref at Mike the Ref EDM. So make sure you follow him, give him a thumbs up on anything he does, and hopefully subscribe and enjoy such great content. And like I said, hope you'll follow me on social media. Check out my website, danimeldanieljobber.ca, and just let me know what you think, and tell people about me, support me. Maybe even buy some really cool merchandise, courtesy of whatamaneuver.net. So I'm going to wrap it up at that. I hope you enjoyed this podcast or video, depending on how you're looking at it. And I look forward to presenting future social commentaries and, of course, more wrestling content, which is still my primary passion and topic that I address on social media. Anyways, you have a wonderful day. God bless. I hope only wonderful things happen to you, and I hope you have the courage to stand up if things don't go so well, and to to either make things better or to let people know that wrongs have been committed, and attempt to right the wrongs in our world today, because that's the only way we can make things better, is to stand up and take a stand and tell the world, the negative side of the world, we're not going to stand for it anymore, that we're not just going to stand by idly and let it happen. So, God bless, love you all, you're in my heart, and I hope you'll continue to follow me. Jobber out.
Time to do the job. Time to do the job! Behold the jobber of jobbers. Daniel Jobber.